En lep dober dan vsem.
A wonderful good afternoon to one and all. Distinguished Madam President, honorable members of the European Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. You can believe me that it is a true honor for me as President of the Republic of Slovenia to be able to address for the first time today this distinguished assembly, the very heart of democracy in the European Union. Today's visit is, to me personally and to my country, an expression of our profound and steadfast dedication to the European project and the shared values upon which it is built: peace, freedom, democracy, the rule of law, and respect for fundamental human rights. The European Parliament, of course, plays a unique role here. You are the directly elected representatives of Europe's citizens. You embody the diversity of our Union, and you serve as the cornerstone of democratic legitimacy in European decision-making. Your role, in view of all the challenges we are facing, is more crucial today than ever before. Above all, the European Parliament must continue to play a key role in maintaining and strengthening public trust in our shared European project. Honourable members, we live today in a time of profound uncertainty, and today, as a Union, we once again find ourselves at a crossroads. We are confronted with a cascade of crises and challenges, from Russia's aggression against Ukraine to the consequences of conflict in the Middle East. We're also facing trade wars, climate change, migration pressures, energy insecurity, and, to a certain extent, unpredictable ramifications of a new technological revolution, driven in part also by the extraordinarily rapid and as yet unregulated development of artificial intelligence. Amidst these external pressures, we must not neglect our internal responsibilities: reforming the functioning of the EU, strengthening societal resilience, and safeguarding our competitiveness, cohesion, and, above all, our unity. None of these crises or challenges are a mere pressure. They are also an opportunity for us to demonstrate who we as Europeans are and whether we together can act and respond jointly. In the past, whenever the European Union has faced major challenges, it has always shown that it has the ability and the capacity to find common ground and to take decisive steps in pursuit of collective action. We must respond to the crises of our time in solidarity, unity, and first and foremost, determination. We need more Europe, not less. We need a connected, strategically focused, and more sovereign European Union, one that is able to protect its values and interests while at the same time remaining a place of freedom, justice, and opportunity. No European country, large or small, can respond effectively alone to the many challenges that stretch far beyond national borders. In this context, common European action is not only a necessity, but it is also our greatest asset. I firmly believe that it is this shared European path that will ensure our long-term stability and development. In these unpredictable times, I would like to underline in particular the importance of the European unity. We must speak in one voice, for only then will we be stronger, more persuasive, and more effective. If we fail to do so, we will risk displaying weakness and allowing the erosion of what the European Union has always stood for: democracy, the rule of law, and human rights. Allow me now to highlight some key themes. starting, of course, with the enlargement of the European Union, which remains one of our most successful and powerful tools for fostering peace, democracy, and prosperity in Europe. In this context, Slovenia stands as a positive example. We are a country that underwent transition itself, implemented successful reforms, and joined the EU in 2004. We therefore understand very well what it means to embrace a European perspective. Membership of the European Union has brought us social stability, economic growth, greater international visibility, as well as a sense of security and belonging to a wider European family, which offers many advantages that we all know well, even if we sometimes take them for granted a little bit too much. Today, we want the very same for the countries of the Western Balkans, for Ukraine and Moldova, and, we hope in the future, also for the people of Georgia. The European future of these countries is also in our own strategic interest, and for this reason, Slovenia strongly supports the accession of as many countries as possible to the European Union by 2030. Thank you. This enlargement, of course, must be based on the candidate country's own achievements and consistently implemented reforms. And this is not just a geopolitical imperative, as the absence of a European presence strengthens the influence of other global actors. No, this is also a moral obligation to uphold the commitments made by the European Union. Each new step towards enlargement offers hope to these citizens that they may be able to live with dignity, work and fulfill their aspirations in their homelands. And let me mention that I travel extensively to Western Balkan states, and the greatest problem that I identify myself is not so much political disunity, but the massive exodus of young people who simply no longer see prospects for the future in these countries. Slovenia is actively engaged in sharing knowledge and experience and supporting reforms in candidate countries, and we are also a strong advocate of enlargement to the Western Balkans. We recognize the transformative power of the process for a region that is vital to the security and stability of the entire continent. Slovenia has also offered assistance to the Western Balkan countries on their path towards EU membership and stands ready to continue doing so. However, enlargement must not only serve the interests of candidate countries themselves, it must also be, first and foremost, in the interest of the member states of the European Union. This is the EU's geographical, political, economic, and above all security interest of Europe that the countries of the Western Balkans join the EU as swiftly as possible. However, enlargement cannot proceed without, at the same time, strengthening the Union from within. Enhancing the effectiveness of our institutions, improving decision-making processes, modernizing and adapting our policies, as well as maintaining an unwavering commitment to the rule of law and fundamental rights. All these are the conditions that will allow us to remain a strong and successful political community, one that is ready to welcome new members. To be prepared for the expansion of our European family, we must ensure both the institutional and financial capacities to do so, making the negotiations on the new multi-annual financial framework all the more important. And we must remain mindful of the importance of our own foundations. A lot more needs to be done, both at the national and European level, to raise awareness among citizens of their member states of the many advantages of enlargement. And if I may add a personal note here, I haven't been on this planet for a long time. Many of you are older than I am. I myself am 57 years old, but I have been following the development of the European Union. And imagine, could anybody think at the end of World War II that France and Germany will be sitting around the same table and negotiating the beginnings of a Europe as we know it today? Perhaps back then that seemed unfathomable, and that is why I today see Europe first and foremost as a project for peace. At the same time, the EU also needs to strengthen its global competitiveness in order to catch up with other world regions and leading economies, particularly in today's environment of increasing barriers to a rules-based and open multilateral trading system and intensifying competition among major powers. The single market is one of our greatest assets, and we must continue to deepen it and to maintain a business-friendly environment. Ladies and gentlemen, I was recently reading an analysis by the Australian Institute for Strategies and Policies comparing the economic power and strength of various countries around the world in the light of modern technologies and critical infrastructure. Only 10 years ago, out of 63 categories, the US were in first place in 60 out of those 63 categories. 10 years on, 57 of those categories see China in first place. The United States are first only in 7 categories. Ladies and gentlemen, the European Union is neither first nor second in any of those categories. And only a strong European economy is going to be able to provide for jobs, is going to be able to maintain our European social model, social welfare and justice, high-quality education, a thriving culture, and, along with all that, sustainable development and maintaining a high quality of life for European citizens. The European Union, therefore, must unite around a clear vision for economic development, as outlined, among other things, in the report prepared by Mario Draghi. This will help us to reduce our economic dependence, including through measures aimed at ensuring economic security, strengthening European industry, promoting advanced technologies, easing burdens, and simplifying regulation. At the same time, we must remain proactive in driving the digital transition and green transformation, not as a mere response to the crises we are facing, but as a forward-looking investment into the future. Climate action must still go hand in hand with other measures to boost competitiveness. The devastating floods that struck Slovenia in August of 2023 are just one of the many reminders of why the EU must remain a leading force in international climate negotiations if we are to meet the goals under the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement, ladies and gentlemen, that President Trump left as one of the first measures under his new administration. I was not enthused to see this happen, just as I'm not enthused to see the United States leaving the World Health Organization. Data shows that 80% of all harmful emissions come from the G20 countries. This includes 4 European countries: Germany, France, Italy, and the UK. Africa, which suffers the greatest consequences of climate change, contributes only 6% to harmful emissions. Small countries also have their share of contribution. But why am I saying this? No country on this planet should rest on the notion that the G20 countries are the only ones that are responsible for what is going on with our planet. Every single country has to add its fair share to the mosaic of our struggle against climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to harness our full potential and to establish Europe as a global hub of knowledge and entrepreneurship. This is why we need to invest significantly more in research, development, and innovation. Slovenia is committed to promoting an open, technology-driven, environmentally friendly, and knowledge-based economy. In doing so, we are of course guided by the European social model and by the active participation of citizens in shaping development processes. We believe that within this framework, we must foster opportunities for younger generations. These are the generations that are going to shape the future of Europe. And we have to realize that it is our shared responsibility to make sure that no one is left behind in these transitions. The way in which artificial intelligence continues to develop will also play an increasingly important role in Europe's competitiveness. If we want AI to be at the service of people and society, we must develop it on the basis of ethical standards, transparency, and human rights. And in this context, I believe that the world's first Artificial Intelligence Act, our European AI Act, the first one of its kind in the world, is a step in the right direction. But our collective struggle has only just begun. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the European Parliament, distinguished Nataša, Slovenia's Commissioner, in light of ever-growing geopolitical tensions, it is clear that we must strengthen our strategic autonomy in the fields of security and defense. Russia's aggression against Ukraine, hybrid threats, cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns that threaten the security of our own democratic processes through foreign interference in electoral processes, economic pressures, and threats to our energy security, all these undoubtedly demand a swift and coordinated response and the enhancement of our own defense and security capabilities. Above all, they require a comprehensive approach, one that builds resilience across society as a whole and strengthens our capacity to respond to crises, including also areas such as health, migration, technological security, climate, and the economy. It is clear that we must become more self-reliant in security and defense so that we will be able to act independently whenever that is required by the protection of our interests and values, of our European values. At the same time, close cooperation with our strategic partners remains essential, despite all the uncertainties. It is also an opportunity to reinforce the European pillar within NATO and to deepen our cooperation both with NATO as well as with other partners with whom we share our common values. Europe must become the guardian of its own future. The world as we knew it until recently is changing, in some cases even disappearing altogether. And that is why the European Union needs clear direction and a bold vision as far as its role in the world is concerned. In this context, Slovenia will continue to work actively in support of a more united, more decisive, more effective and more engaged common foreign and security policy. A world where international law prevails, where human rights are respected, and where conflicts are resolved peacefully is in all of our interests. At a time when international institutions are under immense pressure, we as a union must reaffirm our commitment to a multilateral order based on the integration and complementarity of both peace and security, development, the environment and human rights, and which remains first and foremost grounded in the purposes and principles of the United Nations Charter. In its role as a non-permanent member of the Security Council, Slovenia is committed to playing a proactive role in addressing issues of international peace and security, guided by the principles and fundamental values of the European Union. Honourable members, what we have been witnessing the last months, the last years in the international community is something that to me sometimes looks to be an experiment. If someone dislikes the international order and international law, and if they are against anything that international order and international law has to offer, without at the same time offering a different vision of the world, then the only conclusion I can make is that they wish for chaos. But chaos is something our planet does not want and does not deserve. Honourable members, when it comes to our responsibility and our role in the world, I cannot overlook the wars in Ukraine and in the Middle East. In response to the aggression by the Russian Federation, we, as the European Union, have shown a united response in support of Ukraine, in continuing assistance and in our commitment to a just and lasting peace that will be grounded in international law and the Charter of the United Nations, and which will, of course, be acceptable to Ukraine as well. I sincerely hope that we will continue to play our role as a relevant actor, standing by Ukraine's side, because its future is crucial for the future of our European continent. Slovenia seeks a peaceful and stable European neighbourhood. It is therefore committed to a greater European involvement in addressing the situation in the Middle East, where the war in Gaza is at the center, but where there has also been a sharp increase in violence in the West Bank and beyond, including the barely stable Syria and Lebanon. In this regard, the European Union has unfortunately been too divided and ineffective on the international stage. In addition to upholding international law, including humanitarian law, our central objective must remain the swift cessation of hostilities to put an end to the bloodshed and unnecessary suffering in unbearable humanitarian conditions, and to move towards the implementation of a two-state solution, whereby Slovenia sees the recognition of Palestine as a step towards lasting peace. Honourable members, I believe that the events in the Middle East, you can believe me, always and often cause that I have sleepless nights. What can the European Union do? What can European states do? I sometimes have the feeling that nothing or not enough. A lot is in the hands of one single superpower. But let's be frank. I will dare say this here and today in the European Parliament. We are witnessing genocide in the West Bank. We are witnessing it, watching it, and we remain quiet. Thank you very much. I understand the left, I understand the right. But, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that a person is a persona non grata in a country, a man named Antonio Guterres, that he is a persona non grata, somebody who is in favor of humanitarian international law, where have we come to that people like this have become the problem? This is something that I find very difficult to accept. the inhumane treatment of civilians is something that the international community should not look away from. Humanitarian law, humanism, humanity, the goodness of every single person is something that I sincerely believe in and will never cease believing. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that all of our member states have at some point experienced the meaning of solidarity. Earlier, I mentioned the devastating floods when the people of Slovenia truly felt that the European Union was standing by our side. I would therefore like to conclude my address with the message that the European Union is not a system that is distant from its citizens as it is sometimes portrayed, but instead it is a community that knows how to listen and to help, a community that we build together. After all, the very idea of European integration was based on solidarity, and please let it remain so in the future. Honourable members, if I may address a lighter subject, yesterday we marked World Bee Day, which has been celebrated since 2017, when the United Nations adopted an initiative spearheaded by Slovenia. This day is not only a reminder of the vital role of pollinators for the balance of life, for both people and nature, but it is also a symbolic reminder of the importance of our interdependence. Europe, for example, can only preserve its role in an increasingly complex international environment and ensure the security and well-being of its citizens through the joint efforts of its member states and institutions, through solidarity and responsible action for all of its 450 million citizens. The times we live in demand courage, vision, and cooperation. The values that we stand for, that you stand for here in this chamber, must not be taken for granted. We must keep fighting for them. We must keep defending them time and again,